Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming along to my presentation. The last of the day, 5 o'clock, oh, sorry, 4 o'clock. At least most of you are sober. That's good to see. Been a long slog. Hopefully this won't be too boring or tedious. And if any of you already know me, you know that's probably not true. So, my presentation today, noise complaints and bad weather. The reality of running a DZ in the UK. With a little bit of a Trojan horse at the end. We'll see that when we come to it. A little bit about me. My name is Alex Busby Hicks, Chief Instructor at Skydive Tilstock. Did my first jump in come in, sit down, make yourself at home. Did my first jump in 1989 at Netheravon. I was in the military at the time. My job in the military, I was an instructor, so it was a natural extension for me to become a skydiving instructor. So I became an instructor in the year 2000. Once I got my instructor rating, I was given the opportunity to go out to a place called RAPA, the Rhine Army Parachute Association in Germany, which is effectively did the same thing in Germany as Netheravon and Western on the Green did in the UK. Provided adventurous training to servicemen living in Germany. I was there until 2005, came back to the UK, finished my time in the army at Netheravon and became a civilian in 2006. I had a number of jobs in IT. I was an IT project manager. I was involved in PIM systems, believe it or not. But I had all my ratings and I was doing tandems at weekends and jumping quite a lot. In 2010, due to a fortuitous set of circumstances, I ended up becoming Chief Instructor at Skydive Tilstock. And in 2016, the then owner of Skydive Tilstock, Colin Fitzmaurice, decided he wanted to retire. And myself and Kat, who's the drop zone operator, my wife, took over the running of the DZ in 2016. I'm a British Skydiving Advanced Instructor, Instructor Examiner and a TI, although I've got a ground rating because I am old and fat. I've got about 5,500 jumps and I fly a pink Valkyrie and that's what I love, swooping. Not very good at it, but at least I've only broken myself once. A brief outline of what I'm going to talk about today. Very cryptic. Location, location, location. Feeling like a pelican. NIMBYs and numpties. The customer's always right. Where there's blame. And finally, it's political correctness gone mad. Actually, I was going to take this. I was going to try and break the ice by telling a really crap joke, but then I thought that'd be quite lame. Nobody wants to hear my crap joke, do they?
Yes.
Okay. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
I said knock, knock.
Who's there?
Yoda lady.
Yoda lady, you.
Thank you.
He'll be here all day.
Okay, so let's get into it. Location, location, location. Our first problem, if we want to run a skydiving centre or skydiving operation, is finding somewhere to jump. Some of you may be familiar with this map. It's off the British Skydiving website, and it shows the locations of all the PTOs in the UK. We have 27 PTOs, 24 civilian, and 3 military PTOs. And 2 of them are offshore. So we've got Jersey. Anybody been to Jersey? It's a fantastic DZ. I definitely recommend you get down there. It's the only place where you can land on the beach every time. There you go, Melly. That's a £5 you owe me. And CYPRES. Again, if you get the opportunity to go out to CYPRES, definitely worth it. The last new drop zone opened in the UK in 2021. It was based at Lambeda Airfield in Snowdonia National Park. And it closed in August 2021 after operating for about 6 weeks. A little bit more about that as we go through. And at the moment, Skydive London, which was based at Reading and was kicked off of that airfield and then went up to South Cerney and was kicked off of that airfield, is currently homeless. I know the DZO is desperately trying to find a new home, but it just goes to show that opening up a new DZ in the UK is very hard. If you want to get a skydiving business, you've got to buy one of these that already exist, okay? And there's already people out there trying to buy them up, but we won't talk about that. We've also lost Skydive Wales, which was based in Haverfordwest, Skydive Redlands, which was based at Swindon, and as I said, we lost Swansea. Sorry, not Swansea, we lost Skydive Snowdonia. So it's very difficult you need to look after the DZs that you're going to already and support them. I don't want this to come across as a, oh, woe is me, it's really hard and expensive to run a DZ. I do it because I love it. Everybody that's involved in this sport, we do it because we love it. But hopefully you'll get an idea of, actually, it is a little bit difficult to do what we do. Once you've found a location, you then have to deal with air traffic. This is a map of, these are called radar corridors, but if I put up a map of actual controlled airspace, it's really confusing and you wouldn't see very well. But these radar corridors pretty much overlap where the controlled airspace is in the UK. If I overlay that onto a map of the UK, you can see that the majority of airfields, majority of DZs, actually operate within controlled airspace. That's both good and bad. The airspace is controlled, so you're less likely to have aircraft winging through your airspace without knowing about it, but also it can restrict how you operate. So at Skydive Tilstock, we go into controlled airspace at flight level 85, or 085, 8,500 foot, and then we're controlled by Scottish. We are cleared to flight level 150, 15,000 foot, and hopefully this year with our new aircraft, we'll be experimenting with that. But occasionally when we've had caravans in the past, Scottish, who control us, will actually hold us at altitudes or only give us 14,000 foot. Anybody here jump at Headcorn? You're obviously all too well aware of the effect that air traffic control have on aircraft, and Headcorn's one of the big problems for Headcorn was because they're so close to Gatwick and Heathrow and they're in the approach, they can get held for a long time. And I've heard stories of people being sat on a plane going round and round and round for 45 minutes before they got clearance to fly. So we've got to deal with that as well. But once you've found the airfield, once you've got permission to fly, you then go to the British Skydiving and say, I want to open up a DZ. It's not as simple as just rolling up at a field, mowing out a runway, putting a porta cabin in there and starting a parachute operation. You need landowners' permission, you need planning permission, so that means everybody's going to have their say in whether or not you can operate a DZ because they don't want noisy planes in their in their sky. And we have to go through what's called an airspace change procedure. And that means every general aviation that operates within that area gets a say in whether or not it's suitable for you to operate a DZ. And in fact, Skydive Swansea, not Skydive Swansea, keep saying that, Skydive Snowdonia, it took 2 years of that process before he actually got permission to open up a DZ. So it is very, very difficult. So we've got our DZ, we've got our permission, we're ready to start jumping. And this is when you start feeling like a pelican. Any Blackadder fans here? Does anybody get that reference? I feel like a pelican because whichever way I turn, there's a massive bill in front of me. November X-Ray, our air van. Fantastic aircraft. If you've never jumped it, come to Tilstock quickly before we get rid of it. 6 place, sometimes 7, piston aircraft, quite noisy, climbs really slow, but it's more comfortable inside than a caravan because it's quite wide. We purchased November X-Ray, piston aircraft, quite cheap to purchase. Our mortgage was about £60,000 a year. Cost of the aircraft was around 300 grand. Our annual insurance, £12,000. And that's because we've got quite high limits on who can fly that aircraft. Now, you need to have at least 450 hours time before our insurance will even consider you. If we reduce those hours, our insurance would go up. Maintenance. Sorry, that's just off the edge of the screen there, it shouldn't be. Maintenance bill, my annual maintenance bill is around about 23.5 grand. Okay, we flew 400, nearly 500 hours out of November X-Ray last year. Gets checked every 50 hours. Every 100 hours it gets a bigger check. Every 300 hours it gets an even bigger check. And there's so many things. You put anything in an aircraft, you could put a 0 on the end of the price. Just come back from its annual maintenance. I had 2 new tyres, 2 new tubes, £2,000. It's almost as much on your car, Tony. But we're getting rid of November X-Ray. It's been a valuable workhorse. It's done us proud, but it's time for us at Tilstock to move onwards and upwards. And I'm sure some of you have already heard that we're getting a caravan. In fact, we're getting a caravan from Headcorn. This is okay. Headcorn are getting a bigger, faster plane, so they're not losing out, but we gain. In fact, I need to change that, sorry. There you go. We're getting Go High, a short caravan. We're hopeful that it'll be nice and quick to 12 or 13,000 feet, but we might even go to 15 once we've had it a while and we've worked out the timings and resources and that. So hopefully that'll happen. Now we're leasing it, renting it, not buying it. It doesn't belong to me at the end of the lease term, and it's going to cost me £185,000 a year just to rent it. Fortunately, because I'm renting it, I don't have to pay for the maintenance and I don't have to pay for the insurance. But would anybody like to hazard a guess at how much it costs to insure a caravan? Anyone? Bueller? Anyone? Sorry? Somebody say 40 grand? 45 grand for a caravan, thereabouts. And maintenance-wise, just your scheduled maintenance, that's not without anything going wrong, you're talking about another 45 grand for maintenance as well. But if you blow an engine up, if you have what they call a hot start and torch the engine, that's £500,000. I was speaking to another another operator over the last couple of days. He's getting a new prop, Honeywell, that make the propeller that goes, Hertzel rather, that make the propeller. Over Christmas, just increased all their prices by 40%. So his propeller that was going to cost him 40 grand is going to cost him nearer 60 grand. So the numbers are quite eye-watering. We make our money back though, so don't worry about it too much. So we've got the aircraft, we've got the DZ, we've got the permission, we're ready to go jump in. That's when we have to deal with the NIMBYs and numpties. Here we have overhead photograph of Skydive Tilstock. If anybody hasn't been to Skydive Tilstock, the landing area is the other side of the solar panels. Don't land in the solar panels. The yellow line indicates the departure from off our runway 32, which is orientated nearly north. And then as we take off, we've got these two, we'll call them NIMBY number 1 and NIMBY number 2, to the north of the airfield. NIMBY number 1 on the left has been living there since before skydiving started at Tilstock. Now, we've been jumping there since 1965, the longest continually operating drop zone in the UK. In England rather. Where's Kieran? Don't want to upset Kieran because Strath's been going longer. But he was in his 80s, so he'd been there long before us. So I had a grudging understanding that our operation pissed him off because it was noise that wasn't there when he started. Having said that, in the 90s, he was instrumental in setting up something called the Tilstock Airfield Action Group and was responsible for us losing our Sunday operation. So the grudging understanding I had went out the window. Sadly, he passed away last year, so I don't wish it ill on anybody, but it did take that noise complaint out of the way, which was quite good. NIMBY number 2, on the right-hand side, moved into the area after the DZ had opened. Automatically, you lose any compassion I might have because you knew there was a parachute centre there, you knew there was an active airfield there when you moved in. Sadly though, NIMBY number 2 has a business and personal relationship with my landlord. So, rather than complain to me, well, normally they'll complain to me, but every so often they'll complain to my landlord and try and get him involved. And in fact, we had a meeting towards the end of last year to hash out the issues that we have with the noise complaints, and it was quite obvious that the only solution for them is for the DZ to be closed down completely. Fortunately, my landlord grew up on the airfield. Well, his dad owned the land before he did. He's very supportive of the DZ. He's also very supportive of the massive amount of rent I give him every year. And his brother's one of my skydivers. So we've got a really good relationship, and I'm in no uncertain, I know without any uncertainty that my landlord has got my back and will look after us, which is good. But it's still a pain when people are whinging about the noise and you've got to deal with it. And NIMBY number 3 down in the bottom corner there, again, moved into the area after the DZ had been set up, complained about the noise, a massive complaint that went all the way up to British Skydiving, and it ended up with Tony Knight, who's British Skydiver's representative and deals with noise complaints in the CIA and things like that. He came along, myself, Tony and my chief pilot, Lynn George, met up with the couple outside their house. They would not let us onto the property, so we had to stand at their gate. which is like 100 metres away from their front door because it's a massive property, and had to discuss the issues that we had with the noise. One of the things they said was that they knew that the DZ was there when they bought the house. The people that looked at it before them didn't want it because of the parachute centre, but they liked the parachutes and liked watching them, so it wasn't an issue until it became an issue. The lady also said that it's terrible, I hate it. During the summer, I can't come out and enjoy the garden. The noise of the aircraft's terrible, and it just ruins my day. To which point, I mentioned that we'd been stood there for an hour talking, and all the time that we'd been talking, November X-ray had been taken off and flying around, and we'd been able to speak to each other quite clearly without any problem. That didn't go down too well. What also didn't go down too well is November X-ray had come in, landed, we were actually taken off to the south that time, refueled and took off. And when it took off, the husband of the couple went, "Look, there it is, flying straight over my house." To which Tony Knight, who was completely independent to the DZ, said, "That's 500 metres away. That's nowhere near your house." And that really kind of squashed the complaint for us there and then. Because people think if they see a plane, it's flying over their house. And they get this into their head that you're flying over their house, when you're absolutely not. And to further illustrate that, NIMBY number 1, NIMBY number 2. The yellow line is a track from Skydiving. We've got something called Skydiving that sits in the plane. It it tracks all our flights, so when people complain that we've flown over their house, I can pull it off and say, no, we haven't. It also helps on running, because from the air van you can see it, and it helps the jump master know where they are. Before they open the door, look out and spot to make sure they're in the right place. One morning, NIMBY number 2 sends me a WhatsApp message. It's 9 o'clock and your plane's just flown straight over my house. I'm pretty sure it hadn't flown straight over his house, so I responded, said, really sorry about that. I'll have a chat with the pilot and I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. I then drove to the entrance to this field here on Hospital Lane. While I was there, I took this video of November X-ray taking off. I've got my back to his property. November X-ray's noisy, I'm not going to say it isn't. Immediately after November X-ray had passed, I WhatsApped him again. Was that takeoff any better? His response was no, that was even worse, it was even closer. I then sent him that video. I said, well, I've just taken this film, so it's nowhere near your house. Again, didn't really like that, but it proved the point. He's also convinced that our GPS is inaccurate, because every time I show him a trace of it being nowhere near his house, no, it was absolutely over my house. NIMBYs and numpties. Skip that one because we're a bit short of time. This is just a deer farm. We fly over that occasionally. The deer go scatty and they complain that the deer have gone scatty. One particular occasion they actually come storming into the office at the DZ demanding the pilot's licence and name and licence. If people phone up, email me, come to the DZ and are polite and courteous, we will do anything we can to reduce that. What I won't have is people coming into the DZ being abusive to me and my staff. They were sent away with a short, sharp shrift. But we still try to avoid their deer. Again, they moved here after the DZ was open. So, tough. So we got rid of the noise complainers. What's the next thing? Customers. I would love this job even more if it wasn't for the bloody customers. And I don't include the skydivers in that, you know, the tandem customers. Skydivers are brilliant. You're all lovely. The customers are always right, are they? So, one Saturday morning, get into the office, open up the emails, and I see this. Now, you might not be able to read this at the back, so I'll give you a brief synopsis. This is an email from a customer who was very upset that the tandem instructor had been making rude gestures over his wife's head during the skydive. Pussy-licking gestures. And it was terrible, it was unprofessional, it was disgusting, they couldn't watch the video, they couldn't share it, and demanded a refund of the video payment and the cost of the skydive. Now, as you can imagine, I was pretty devastated by this. Why would my instructors be doing something so offensive? Went to the video, had a look at the video, all he was doing was sticking his tongue out. Simple as that. He had a big tongue, but he was just sticking his tongue out. He wasn't doing anything offensive and wasn't doing anything that I've seen a million tandem instructors do. And as a camera flyer, I do myself to try and get the student to smile. Fortunately, because my wife is the DZO, she responded to this, and I think a woman responding to this was probably the best way to go about it, pointing out that she had to Google what he was talking about, and definitely was not what was going on. And we also sent him photographs of other tandem instructors doing exactly the same thing. It's like, that's what he did, we all do it. However, in hindsight, it's probably not a good look. So our tandem instructors don't do that now, okay? Because it just saves the hassle of having a similar complaint in the future. And to be fair, if they'd have been really upset about it and it was justifiable, we'd have probably come to a more amicable solution, you know, probably given them a refund or a discount or something like that. But in my investigation, I found this email, which he'd also sent to the DZ 2 days before she was due to skydive, saying, oh, the weather's looking crap, can I get a full refund? So I think really he was just trying to get his money back because he'd spent a lot of money and probably didn't realise at the time just how much he'd spent. So, grumpy customers. And the worst of all, the ambulance chasers, where there's blame. At Skydive Tilstock and at a lot of DZs, we have weight limits. We have a maximum weight limit of 15 stone for tandems, but we also have a weight limit based loosely on BMI. And the number of people that phone me up and tell me that BMI is not a really good measurement, it's not, but it's the best that we've got to kind of accurately have an idea of how fit and suitable somebody is to do a tandem skydive. There's our height and weight limits. They're on our website. Everybody gets weighed when they come through the door, and it's very rare that we would allow somebody that was outside of those weight limits to carry out a tandem skydive. It does happen occasionally, and it's either myself or my 2IC Rich Cotton will do an assessment and decide whether or not they can jump. Because obviously you could have a bodybuilder that is built like me, but not fat. So, you know, they're massive over their BMI for their weight, but you know, it's just purely because it's muscle mass. So we can make those adjustments if you want to. On this particular occasion, the lady that came in, she was local, she was from Whitchurch, she was doing a tandem for a Whitchurch charity. It was a lovely day, we had a great spell of jumping, I was in a good mood, I assessed her and I let her jump. But there was just something in the back of my mind that didn't ring true. So I watched her as she got kitted up. I watched her in the suspended harness. We put everybody in suspended harnesses to make sure they can get their legs up and they can arch and do all the good stuff that needs to be done. And she did that without a problem, no drama. So I was like, okay, she can do that, I'm happy. To be a little bit indelicate, the fatter somebody is, the more weight they carry around their legs. When you do the harness up, the harness sinks into the fat, makes it difficult for people to get their legs up. Okay, and it also, you know, cuts off their blood system, more likely to make them faint. So there's all sorts of issues related to people being overweight, which is why we have these limits. But I let her jump. At Tilstock, every landing is observed by somebody, whether it be one of the instructors, a camera flyer, or somebody sent down there to watch the landings. On this particular occasion, as I say, there was just something not hitting right with me. So I went down to the landing area to watch the tandem come into land. The landing was fantastic. Nice, soft landing, straight in. The grass had just been mown. Brilliant. She got her legs up nice and high, landed without a problem, stood up, and as she walked away from the PLA, she was limping. She walked past me and I said, are you okay? Did you hurt yourself? She says, no, it's all right. I've had a problem with my ankles for ages. I also noticed that she'd got a tubing grip bandage around her ankle because her sock had rolled down and it could be seen. So alarm bells are going off now. So we go back to the go back to the clubhouse. I immediately start my SMS system, safety management system. I put an incident report into to Jeff rather, just to say, this is what's happened. She's not said she was injured, but I reckon there's a claim coming our way at some point. I put together an evidence pack which included witness statements from myself, the tandem instructor, the office staff, this photograph which I took surreptitiously without her seeing. That's what surreptitious means, isn't it? And copies of her tandem training record card and the smart waiver that everybody signs prior to jumping, just to be on the safe side. Unfortunately, at the time, on the tandem waiver, it didn't say, I have no existing injuries. Okay, it does now. That was a learning curve, the learning point from this. But on the smart waiver, it does. So I'm there, right, I'm bulletproof here. We've got lo and behold, a couple of days later, or a couple of weeks later, get this letter through the post from some law firm saying that this woman's injured herself and they're going to make a claim. Massive form for me to fill in and evidence they want to provide. That's great. I'm a member of British Skydiving. The insurance will cover this. Unfortunately, she said that she did it prior to jumping and caught her foot in a rabbit hole in the spectator area. Because it was done before she jumped, it didn't come under British Skydiving insurance, so we would have to claim off of our public liability insurance. Now, that is a hole, undoubtedly, but how the hell do you miss that hole? I mean, yeah, anyway. So, a number of emails between me and the insurance company, and it turned out that one of my club jumpers actually used to work for a no-win, no-fee ambulance chasing firm. And he gave me the best advice ever. He put me in touch with solicitors of his that he used to work with. And I sent them an email. The last email I sent them gave them all the information they wanted, all the stuff that I've shown you, witness statements, everything, copy of the incident report. But I also said that if we go to court, we will be calling her medical history in as evidence. That was 14 months ago, and I've not heard anything since. So it's very important that we keep track of these things, because it could definitely dig us out of a hole if we need to. And in fact, there's a copy of a training record card and the smart waiver. I think most people are using smart waivers at DZs nowadays for tandems. It's a good piece of work. So, it's a pain in the arse to find a DZ. It costs a fortune to run one. You have to deal with annoying customers, ambulance chasers, all the things that I've told you. Why would you do it? Why would anybody want to run a DZ? Well, for starters, it's better than working for a living. Okay, it's the best job I've ever had, and I wouldn't want to do it anywhere else. But this, the smile on faces, the smile on our students' faces when they qualify, the tandem students that are doing something amazing to raise money for charity. My fun jumpers having a good time, the Rainbow Boogie, our Christmas party, just being involved with these amazing club jumpers that we have is fantastic. But also, I get to work with this amazing team. I'm biased because they're my team, but I've been to lots of DZs, and I think my team's probably the only team that doesn't have any negative people in it. I've been to DZs where it's been fantastic, but there's always one grumpy tandem instructor, or there's always one arsey packer. Every person on that screen, apart from this hairy god here, are happy, I believe, working at Tilstock, and it's a pleasure and an honour to work with them. There you go, people. So, that's that bit out of the way. Now the Trojan horse. The last thing. Political correctness gone mad. So you may know, Skydive Tilstock runs the Rainbow Boogie. Yeah, every year. This year it's the end of May, beginning of June. It's a fantastic event. Anybody been to the Rainbow Boogie? Excellent. Who's coming this year? Excellent. There are a number of reasons why I started the Rainbow Boogie, but it's aimed at supporting the LGBT community in skydiving and showcasing diversity and exclusivity within Skydive Tilstock and within sport in general. Having said that, there was a couple of things that happened over the previous years that raised concerns for me. You may or may not know that there was an instructor course review working group set up to look at instructor courses run by British Skydiving. As part of that, we put out a questionnaire to people that had been on courses previously to see what their experience was like. And some of the feedback we got regarding sexism and misogyny on courses, particularly from instructors and examiners, was very concerning. Having been around a few DZs, seeing how women are treated on DZs was also very concerning. Personal relationships that I've built up with female skydivers and actually speaking to them, and also my wife Kat is a massive feminist, so these things are very much on our radar. I found out about lots and lots of cases of sexual harassment, sexual abuse, some very serious cases of sexual abuse, and just general misogyny on DZs. And I want to take this opportunity to say, boy, how we can stop that. We decided to run the UK's only women-only event, and we did the first one in 2021. The weather was crap. I think we did get some jumping done, but the atmosphere was fantastic, and everybody that attended the event really enjoyed it. The main aim of this event, when we put it together, was to try and tackle that sexism that we see in the sport, to have a space for women to come along out of the male gaze, if you like, for want of a better word, to be themselves, learn, tell us about things that had happened on the DZ, and try and take something away from that to change it. As the event happened, though, it became less about that and more about having a space for women to be together, to nurture each other, to learn, to grow, and become better skydivers and instructors. We had a couple of women that had stopped skydiving, came to the event purely because it was an all-women event to get back into skydiving. So when we did the event last year, the focus wasn't so much on tackling sexism on the DZ, or DZs, should I say. It was about providing that space for women to grow and nurture each other and have that experience. I wasn't involved, obviously, but I did get a lot of feedback from my wife and from the ladies, the women that came along, and it was well needed, it was well appreciated, and we will be doing it again year on year on year. That said, it didn't all go swimmingly. We did have, excuse me, I'm sweating here, we did have a bit of friction from club members and instructors, unfortunately, and that was purely because Kat and I had not adequately explained what the aims of the event were. Okay, and Kat and I were very sad about that, and hopefully we're going to do better in the future. But what we did do was we put out a questionnaire to our club jumpers to see what their thoughts were about the event. And it was broadly broken down into these reasons why people didn't want it. There was a lot of support for the event from men and women, but those that were less supportive, the reasons broke down like this. It's not Tilly. It's not a Tilly event. We do the Rainbow Boogie. We're an inclusive DZ. Everybody's welcome. This is not an inclusive event. It's not Tilstock. And it's a fair point. Segregation isn't right. If you segregate men and women, you're only going to cause problems. I guess a valid compliment. Valid comment, rather. We don't have that problem at Tilly. We do. It's not as bad as it is at some places, and I definitely catch myself saying things that I shouldn't do. I'm not massively offensive, but having spent 22 years in the army, I'm trying to reconstruct myself, but every so often I make a mistake. But our culture at Tilly is definitely more towards the right end of the spectrum. The most valid one was you can't change the behaviour of men if men are not involved in the conversation. And that was a very valid point, but actually because of the lack of communications or the poor communications from Kat and I, we hadn't got over that wasn't the main reason for the event. But this is why I'm doing this now. Because I've got guys in here who, if I'd have said, I'm going to tell you why we shouldn't be sexist, you wouldn't come. I'm not saying you're being sexist, but you wouldn't be interested in what was going on. Okay? And we also had people that were like, it's not fair. We don't get a caravan all that often. Why can't we jump it? Which is a fair one, if not a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Selfish. There we go, selfish. So what's the reality for women on the DZ? Who went to Elise and Hannah's talk this morning? Okay, it was an outstanding talk. Okay, you've already seen this. The rest of you haven't. We've got, not we, there's the Women's Weekender, there's a WhatsApp chat, and they were asked to provide some background for Hannah's talk, which Elise was quite happy for me to steal. And these are some of the reasons or some of the things that have happened to a small group of women jumping at DZs all around the country, okay, within recent memory, you know, within the last couple of years. So I'll just give you time to have a read through those. Would you like me to read them out? Okay. A male TI stuck up behind me and smacked my bum so hard my legs went numb and I collapsed onto the floor. The same TI would regularly ask me when it was my turn to have, when it was his turn to have sex with me, even though he knew I was in a monogamous relationship. I was showing my British skydiving membership at reception. A staff member put it down his pants and rubbed it. A member of staff was checking the fit of my rig and got me to lean over and then smacked my bum and said, I just had to. I had to crouch down the entire way to altitude, but when I was facing the CI's crotch, I experienced a, while you're down there, jokes made constantly to me on the way up. I don't know who that was, but if I find out, I will be having words. Man up cupcake. Hear that all the time. Don't want to man up, woman up. Don't grow a pair of balls, grow a vagina. Because those things, they push babies out. They're tough. Okay? That's going to be my new phrase, grow a vagina. This isn't a discipline for women. Interestingly, because most of our top flight skydivers are women, but that's a different matter. You're a good flyer because you don't fly like a girl. Again, interesting, because our Women Weekender stickers are fly like a girl. If anybody would like one, pick one up on the way past. I'm going to be watching you more at TI during the course because women can't flare tandem canopies. I can't believe you landed out. Typical woman, not being able to navigate on a new drop zone. I shouldn't have let you jump here. It's really irresponsible to skydive when you're a mother. How selfish are you? Why is it irresponsible to skydive when you're a mother, but not irresponsible to skydive when you're a father? That's an interesting one. If she can pass the course, anyone can. When briefing a tandem student or TI student, get your legs up like you're in the gynecologist's chair. That's beggars. If you weren't a lesbian, I would. You're such a waste. She landed off, unsurprising for a woman. I'll kit check you so that I have a reason to stare at your tits for a bit. To an AFF student from their instructor. Somebody new to us. I mean, it shouldn't happen at all, but that's pretty much the first impression they get of the sport. Why the fuck do we let women skydive? You only got this far because you're a woman and it's easier being a woman in skydiving. It is not easier being a woman in skydiving. I'm sorry, I have to mansplain that. You can only come up to the tower if you show me your tits. You land your canopy quite well for a girl. All comments made to a small group of women in the recent couple of years. And if that's happening to this small group of women, what's happening to all the other women in the UK, skydivers? They make up 17% of our membership, okay? There's no wonder if they're dealing with this at DZs, why women don't want to skydive, and we need to change that. It's important, though, to understand that it's not all men. I'm not saying that everybody in this room is a sexist, misogynist, woman hater who doesn't want women to skydive. Absolutely not, okay? We all make mistakes, though, and I will put my hand up that I do make mistakes, and I'm hopeful that my staff and my jumpers know me well enough that if I do, they can talk to me about it. Or they'll tell Kat, and Kat will definitely talk to me about it. But it's also to understand that if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If you don't tackle it, it just empowers people, enables people to do it more. So how can we make a difference? Some simple steps, guys. Don't validate it. If somebody makes a sexist joke, don't laugh. You laughing at that joke, even if you're laughing out of embarrassment, validates what they've said. It makes them think that they can carry on acting that way. And we've all been there, and I know I've done it myself recently. We all need to get better. Don't let it pass. It's not always easy to say something, especially if the person making the comments is the chief instructor or the cool and groovy jumper on the DZ you know, or one of the senior instructors, and you've only been jumping a couple of weeks. It's difficult to do that, but have some courage and step up. If it's safe to do so. If you think the person's going to fill your head in because you've called them out, then you might not want to do so. Ask questions. Why did you say that? What made you think it was funny? Why did you feel the need to belittle the woman just because she's a woman? Remind them of their better self. Yeah? Would you have said that to your mum? Would you have said that to your sister? How would you feel if somebody said that to your daughter? So why are you saying it to her? Express disapproval. Tell them you didn't like it. Simple as that. And you didn't think it was funny. But remember, know your limits, really. Know your boundaries. If you're challenging this behaviour and things start going a bit awry, don't risk it. Don't get into some sort of confrontation. You know, shut the conversation down and get yourself out of this situation. You've done something to try and affect change. It's not worth putting yourself at risk. When you do call people out for this kind of behaviour, or if somebody's called you out for this kind of behaviour, there's a couple of ways you're going to react. You could react the wrong way. You could get defensive. You could, oh, I didn't say that. You could disbelieve them. That's not what I said. You got it wrong. You could get angry or aggressive. You could start name calling. Oh, stop being such a woke snowflake. Yeah, they might belittle you, or they might just be dismissive. The correct way to react if you get called out, if you make a mistake, is to acknowledge what you've done. Yeah, sorry, I did say that. Apologise. I shouldn't have done it. It was wrong. I will be better. And learn from what you did to make it better for you and for the women in skydiving. But what happens if you're not happy with the outcome? Well, you can take it to the chief instructor, unless, of course, it's the chief instructor making those comments. Every DZ should have a safeguarding officer. Take it to the DZ safeguarding officer. If it was the DZ safeguarding officer that made those comments, they shouldn't have been the DZ safeguarding officer. And if all else fails, we do have confidential reporting, and it can be reported to the British Skydiving Compliance Officer through the website. To summarise, we've all, oh, it's not really a summarise, I'm just a statement. We've all heard these comments. Some of us may have made them. Let's just stop it, okay? Women don't like it. They don't want it. So let's encourage more women to join our sport, stay in the sport, by highlighting poor behaviour when we see it at the DZs. And if all else fails, if you're not getting the results you like, speak to me, because I will front people up. Okay? Any questions? Sorry to have stunned everybody there. Any questions?
Yeah, firstly.
Yes.
Oh, right. Firstly, firstly, them comments made about women, that wasn't at our DZ.
That was not a Tilstock, no, that was from DZ throughout the country.
Right, okay.
It was representative, a group of the women that came to the women's event on the WhatsApp group. They were asked to give examples of things that had happened to them recently, and that was just a small sample of what we got. So they jump all over the place.
The second question was about the noise with the numpties. The thing that got me was that they're challenging you, and it's something that you have to go and deal with. Why aren't they dealing with the council? And the council, once they've put a...
So what tends to happen is somebody will complain about the noise. We'll do something, but they won't be happy with it. They'll then complain, to the local council, which is why I attend pretty much every Whitchurch and Ash Parish Council meeting, because that's where the complaint goes first. Whitchurch and Parish Council, I've got a great relationship with them. They know how I deal with noise complaints. They'll tell them that there's nothing we're doing wrong. They just have to basically suck it up. They won't be happy with that. Then they'll do it to Shropshire Council, to the noise abatement, the EP, Environmental Protection section of the local council. They won't be. They will say the same thing, that we're not doing anything wrong. We're operating within our permission. And in fact, I've just had that very thing happen. Got a letter at the beginning of Christmas. Somebody had made a complaint that we'd been operating outside of our planning permission. Said we'd flown too. We can only do 2,000 lifts a year at Tilstock. We can only have 2,000 aircraft movements, and they said that we'd been doing too many. I phoned up the council. And they're like, you know how many lifts you've done, don't you? I said, yeah. You've got that written down, haven't you? Yeah. You know how many you can do? Yeah. Don't worry about it. So actually, because the council are now used to people complaining, it's the same people complaining all the time, it becomes a little bit vexatious. So they're less inclined to take it seriously, if that makes sense. They'll still send out a letter. And then if they're not happy with the council, they'll either go to British Skydiving, or as I had on one occasion, they go to the MP, which at the time was Owen Patterson. That worked out well for him.
I just want to say thank you, actually, just because it's all well and good Elise and I standing up and like doing our talk and everything, but I feel like what this sort of, it does sometimes feel like a bit of an upward struggle, and just having someone like you in a position as a chief instructor DZO and everything is just yeah, I'm just grateful. That's it.
Thank you.